So I was just going to touch on a few topics regarding sort of BIM and how it can be practically applied. I'm actually going to pull up something here in a second that's sort of more of a PowerPoint overview, but at the moment, as you can see here, this is a multidisciplinary model, and we will get to that in a little while. With that, you have your grids laid out, you have your project sort of established at a 0, 0. And one thing that's often recommended is to leave a grid, have a grid intersection be your sort of project base point, because grid intersections are snappable when putting views on sheets. So next part here, scope box, I highly recommend for a number of reasons, and that is that if you establish grids for your project, you can assign them to a scope box. In this case, this is scope box 1. You know, let's say the scope box of the project grows, the grids will grow with it. So moving on to existing conditions modeling. Now you'll notice that this picks up from some of the different topics and that are a part of this series overall. But let's say you have some existing conditions modeling. So I'm actually just going to model in a few things here. And I'm going to duplicate, set this to existing. Now there are lots of tools like the CAD Technology Center tools that will allow you to make views that are set to specific phases. But in this case, you know, let's say you have a bunch of walls around the outside that were from a previous portion of the project. As such here, of course, these walls are model and existing. And let's say you're going to add in some new beams and columns. So if you switch back to this view here, they don't look a whole lot different, but you could temporarily change that to say that your existing phase is going to be halftone, just for sort of visual differentiation. Now, the question being, how good is the data that you have? In this case, obviously, I just drew it, but let's say you're trying to document a real existing conditions building. So I recommend having some project parameters, and in this case, I'm not going to do shared parameters, even though that's advisable, but exist date verify basically would be a parameter that would allow you to track when something was verified. And in this case, you're probably going to want to put it on walls, structural columns, structural framing. You know, you can put it on anything you want, really, windows, etc. And another one, existing source. Same parameter categories to be selected, walls, structural columns, structural framing. So now you select these right here, you can say, okay, you know, it was verified on 16/11, you know, 17, which would be today. And source, you could say VIF for verifying field. So now that may or may not be terribly useful when you're trying to model something new, but let's say you throw some filters in there to kind of help you understand what has or has not been verified. So I'm going to go to View, Filter, and say New. I'm going to call this VIF and or existing conditions verified. And in this case, I know the walls, columns, framing was in that. And as you can see here, these added parameters are available. And so you can say existing date verify does not equal nothing, or you could say contains 16, which we know is the year. And with that, that filter is a way we can begin to parse the data for this view. So if you go to Visibility and Graphics over here, which is VV, and Add, and in this case, I'm going to actually make it say green for good, like you verified it. And you could also put a pattern in here. So there you can see that object has been verified, while maybe everything else has not. So we're going to do a ceiling at 8 feet. And of course we can't see this because we're actually in a floor plan. So if we go to the ceiling plan, there you can see it. Now let's say that this ceiling is existing, which with our rules set up in the phase settings, that will be halftone. But let's say that, let's say it's 7 feet and 9, and we want to know what are the objects that are going to clear 8 feet. So there you can see that because the ceiling height was below 8 feet, that's a problem. Now if it was 8 feet even, it would not be an issue. But these are just some of the few things that you could do using Revit and just simple filters to begin to understand how existing conditions affects your new construction. Of course, if you're tying in an old ceiling to a new ceiling, and obviously, you have to match heights, and that's a different issue. But in this case, maybe you want this to be a new ceiling at 9 feet. So moving onward here to another topic, massing. So massing is kind of one of those tools that not everyone has understood or taken full advantage of. I'm going to go ahead and make an in-place mass here. And just a simple rectangle. And I'm going to create solid form. So now if you look at it in 3D, of course this is a boring little box. That box could be a good 600 feet tall, for instance. And of course that's not really useful yet. Let's say we're doing a tower, but I'm going to go ahead and throw in a view here to see it from the side here. And if it was truly a tower, you would probably have a good 30 more levels or maybe 60 more levels, depending. Now, one thing to note about group and associate is it will group all these levels. For this purpose, that's fine. Typically, you don't want that, though. So at this point, you have a boring tower, and you could, of course, constrain the top, which at that point, if you move levels up and down, like the last level, which would be the roof level, that would obviously adjust the height of the building as well. So now, of course, this would be very predictable as it is to get the square footages because it's a rectangle, but not all buildings are rectangles. Let's say we have a couple extra profiles in here. And they're a little bit hard to get a hold of, but with the masking tool, you know that you can begin to combine freeform objects with regular objects. As such here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this. And of course, this object itself has a minimal amount of data. Obviously, gross square footage, surface area, gross volume. If we go ahead and throw in the mass floors here, you can use Shift to select all. And give it a second here. So now, as you know, these are plates at the levels of the project. You could go ahead and schedule these as well. Of course, each floor has a surface area, a exterior surface area, perimeter, and obviously it identifies the level as well. So this becomes a driver geometry for much more than just what you see here. I'll just shade it so you can see the mass floor objects are purple, but what's more important, like I said, is that this is a driver geometry. So if you decided that you wanted part of this element to change throughout the course of the project, finish that. The floor plates update, as would all your area totals. Now, a simple schedule here in masses and floors. You know, there's a count, floor area, volume, perimeter. Add these, and also level. Sort by level. I think it's, if I recall. So here, this begins to sort of report in the counts. Obviously not useful, but you can begin to understand what the floor area is for each part of the project, as well as perimeter and volume. Perhaps great when it comes to doing like a feasibility study or FAR ratios. Now, cartoon sets. This part here, this part's kind of, I would say, underutilized in the field, and that is that people don't really begin to understand how their project is laid out without actually going through and doing a cartoon set. So for instance here, you know, we only have a couple levels. We could obviously put them on sheets, you know, level 1, level 2, etc. But that doesn't begin to tell the whole story of the project. So Another thing it's technically more a part of setup is making plans and making them in a consistent manner. So here you have a floor plan, but there's an opportunity to use a view template in the view type, which allows each plan to be created with the architectural plan view template, obviously giving you consistent results. Same goes for RCPs. So at the moment, I'm going to go ahead and throw these views here in the project. So as you can see here, you can see in the distance elements from, say, level below or level above. This is the pesky underlay setting that is sort of assumed to be something that everyone likes, and in actuality it's kind of a pain. So there are a few tools here I'm going to recommend. Bonus Tools is one of them. It's a Kiwi Codes product, which allows you to do some things like removing view underlays, like here. Because as you can see, all of your floor plans have an underlay set. Now that's great for coordination, but pretty much terrible for documentation. So you can set them to none, and you can select all and hit update. It's a great tool. Kiwi Codes for I think around $40 for the bonus tools. So as I mentioned, cartoon sets, that's a very underutilized sort of part of planning for a project. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit with that here. I'm going to open up Dynamo. And in this case, we have a project here that's 60 levels or so. And apologies, Dynamo takes a little while to get loaded up. As I mentioned, you know, getting a cartoon set is perhaps something that is one of the most important parts about setting up a project. And the earlier you can do it, the better, which would include elevations, sections, etc. So last but not least, we're going to get into 3D coordination. I have to close this so when a person comes into a project, it probably looks a lot like this, where you have essentially nothing to help you visually guide how things are laid out besides your own, you know, two eyes. So quite simply, there's a couple ways to do it. What I've chosen to do in this case is just go in and make a few filters here, one of which is horizontal surfaces. So that is, say, ceiling planes, which you can see here on the second floor. This is the lovely sort of basic sample project from Revit. Horizontal surfaces being transparent and also half-toned. And then the other part about this, which I've set this on a view template, and I've done reflected ceiling plans rather than plans because there's a lot more typically to coordinate in a ceiling than anywhere else. So what I've done is go in here to Revit links and specify a custom color for each link, assuming that your disciplines are discrete, meaning electrical, mechanical, plumbing, fire protection. And I basically turned everything a specific color so that when you go in, you can clearly discern between each model. In this case, I didn't color them, but so yeah, this this is the kind of information that, anybody who's even fresh on the project can begin to say, okay, where there are going to be potential conflicts. In this case, like a ceiling here has a duct that's flying above a light. So using the selection box that's new in Revit 2016, I can go in and understand here that, where's the duct height and where's the light going to be, and whether or not that will be a conflict. As you can see here, the duct is above and the light is below. So it's generally not going to be an issue. But in the case of, say, a diffuser and a light, obviously that would be an issue. So, even simple visual checks here can allow you to understand, whether or not things are going to be coordinated, even without going into clash detection. In cases like this, things that are dark, you have to wonder about their height relative to, say, ceiling objects. In this case, mechanical pipes are one's too low right there. You can see the ceiling plane right there. So obviously tracking clashes is not something that you can do, I would say, very easy in Revit. There are workflows with BCFs, etc. But in this case, this is just kind of a visual way to get a head start on whether or not things are semi-logical and coordinated. Now, one other topic I was going to get into is how you can check the model for quality, because we all know that, as the saying goes, garbage in, garbage out, and the poorer things are modeled and documented, the less likely you're going to have a quality project and a good CA process. So some simple things you can do is again using the bonus tools here, is you can make actually no, I take that back. I'm going to use View Creator, which is a Revit Express tool. Also well worth having, I should say. And a lot of these you could supplement with Dynamo also. But, creating views for Worksets. In this case, I have 4 simple Worksets, and you can create 3D views for these, which down the road, that's going to be useful, especially in your own architecture model. So, as you can see here, this model is on the linked electrical workset. This model is obviously on the linked MEP. And then workset 1 is where essentially everything architecture is, and share levels and grids, which these match up with the names of the worksets. And obviously you're not going to see anything on the shared levels and grids, but the reality is both shared levels and grids are on that. Now, another way you can go about confirming how things are set up in terms of worksets is using Ideate Explorer, another great tool. So you can do entire project, and you can look at things from a workset perspective here. The worksets are always user created. So in this case, you've got about 3,500 objects on workset 1. You have 26 objects, which are your levels and grids on share levels and grids. And obviously the linked models are on their respective workset. Now, it's really important in terms of performance that these are on their own worksets, especially when it comes to opening up a model. The more complex the project, the more linked models you're going to have, and the more worksets you're going to need basically to be able to control that. So at any given time, if you need to say just do 2D annotations, you can simply turn off those work sets. So if you hit close, they're gone. And if you have a project or a computer that's limited on RAM, even better, you can prevent them from opening by specifying the work sets to be open on the project. So those are some of the things that you can begin to do related to, I would say, checking for quality. Now, I didn't go through sort of the full rigor because there's a lot of different things you can do, and I'll have a more organized version of that presentation when that time comes. But in the beginning, you have to really understand, like, okay, is everything modeled on the right work set? Because obviously that's going to influence how things show up, the performance of the project, etc. Some other things here, again, with, say, bonus tools, is you can remove unused views, which are views that are not on sheets. In this case, we have some electrical and mechanical views on sheets. Obviously, those coordination views are also, used. So there's a couple of the ways to go about it. You can go into, instead, Revit Express tools, and you can use the project cleaner if you wanted. Now, there are other ways to also do this. You can set up, let's see, schedules that basically limit down views to specifically views that are not on sheets, which actually I could show you that quick here. So you would go in, and your template could have a lot of these things pre-built into it, like the coordination settings, etc. So in this case, that's right, if you list it separate. So you would say, okay, sheet name, sheet number, and then your filter is sheet number equals blank. So no, it doesn't. Sometimes the blank or does not, sometimes leaving it blank is not an appropriate way to filter. Sometimes it works. It's kind of hit and miss. So in this case, we want it to does not contain a hyphen. So here, that's even a problem because of the way the sheet names were made. They were not made with hyphens. So that's a problem as well. So again, understanding exactly how your project is set up is also critical. The view name itself you would add to be able to confirm what exactly. So in this case, these views are all views that do not have sheets. So, again, the button for removing all views or removing unused views is a very sort of broad stroke way of going about this. Of course, you can go in and begin to sort by view name to begin to say, okay, do I want to get rid of all my level 1 stuff? Do I want to get rid of my sections? And with schedules, deleting rows simply deletes the object. So that's one thing you should keep in mind. And of course, sometimes it causes issues. But simple things like this, getting these views and these schedules set up in the beginning of a project will help your project long term. I'm going to go ahead and sort these a little bit further here. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with, family and type, which obviously if you sort by family and type and then view name, you'll have a better way to understand that. I'm going to go put a blank line between these. So in this case, you can see here, these are probably not even, well, these are 3D. These here are ceiling plans because it's a footer, it's below. Drafting views, which, you know, a drafting view is obviously probably has some information on it. So like I said, these are some of the things that you can do, you know, and you can begin to put these all into a template so that in the future you don't have to do this kind of setup. But as is, you know, the Autodesk template or a early developed template in your office, probably missing a lot of the things that could help help a BIM coordinator speed up their workflow and save a lot of time. Please advise Arpan, are we taking questions in this session?
No, no questions.
Okay.
We'll take questions in the workshops.
Okay. Well, just trying to think of anything else that might be useful sort of early on as a sort of precursor to the 12 session. I think one thing we were going to go over was presentation techniques. Obviously, that's a whole other ball of wax. This is just kind of you know, early design, coordination, things of that nature, as well as, you know, project setup. And you know, I'll say that I've got a lot of add-ins, and that will also probably be a part of my recommendation. Is that, you know, certain add-ins are free, others are not. Obviously, project and office budgets may influence whether or not you can use certain add-ins, but you know, there are certain things I do recommend. So, you know, those will come in future presentations.